I'm so happy to have with us Angelina Jolie, who is not only, of course, a brilliant actor and director and special envoy of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, but a member of the Time family as a contributing editor and columnist. Angelina, thank you so much for being with us.
Very, very happy to be here with everyone.
You're at home these days, as most of the rest of us are?
Yes, we're all locked in and doing all right. Yeah.
Doing all right.
Yeah.
You wrote a powerful column in our most recent issue, Finding Hope, about really making the point that even though the virus itself seems to mercifully spare children, kids are being exposed in other ways that are going to force us to urgently rethink how we protect children in the days and months and years ahead. Can you talk about that and the point you were seeking to make in that column?
Well, I mean, as you know, long before the virus, we had so many children in need across the world. I work with UNHCR, and there are about 30 million children who are uprooted. Before the virus, we had over 258 million children out of school. So we had a crisis bigger than we could manage long before. Now this, and now the numbers so rapidly have risen. 1.5 million out of school in need of help. The World Food Program speaking about possibly a famine of biblical proportions. Having been in the field and seeing how these people exist and how they depend really daily, moment to moment to survive, I certainly can say I understand how just a little pull in that fabric, how things fall apart. It should never be that vulnerable. We should never have children around the world that vulnerable. We should not be in this state.
I think we've all felt, I know I have a sense of relief. And I mean, just to imagine if the virus itself did affect kids in significant ways, how devastating that could be. But it has pulled the focus away from the, I suppose, secondary or indirect and very powerful impact on kids, and especially girls.
Oh, yes. Well, as we know, I have a few girls' schools around the world, and right. To get them started wasn't easy. And to encourage in Kenya, Afghanistan, Cambodia, to get them started, to encourage the family members to send the girls, to prioritize the girls' education over how they may be considered useful at home, or those who are considering marrying their children off, their daughters off. So you can imagine what we know happens to girls. We know from the past that it doesn't take long, a week and there are more child marriages, a week and there's already more forced labor. The violence across the world, and I know, and I'd like to speak about that as well in America, the hunger in America, the violence in America, but across the world, vulnerable children. So for many children, as you pointed out earlier, that yes, they're not as directly impacted by the virus, but the secondary impact, the being locked within a home with an abuser, the being locked within a home unable to access that school meal that was your one big meal of the day that kept you from hunger. 1 in 7 American children. It's unbelievable. 1 in 7 American children are that close to going hungry.
Right. School provides so many key resources to kids beyond education, right? So how are you in the schools you work with? How are you and they looking to handle that remotely, or finding alternative ways to help these kids while they're not in school?
Well, the two most the two things that affect children from my view the most, being out of school, of course, the education and the challenges with education. I know parents across even this country are challenged with homeschool, and that's maybe more of a challenge on the parents than the children. But
Yeah.
for the children, it's the food insecurity that affects 11 million children, severe insecurity, 11 million children, 20 million on these food stamps and dependent, and it's domestic violence and abuse. We've seen the numbers go down. I believe it was even last checked, it was about 40% less calls in and information reports of child abuse. Now we know it didn't go away. So why that number for people who work on this issue is so upsetting is because it means these kids are trapped. Nobody can see them. When a child goes to school, it is a place where you can temporarily get away from the violence or the horrors if you live in one of those homes. But it's also a place for the bruises to be noticed, for a child who's a child maltreatment to be witnessed, and for it to be called in. So these are things, and we know domestic violence is on the rise across the world because we're hearing horrible reports. So within a home can be the most dangerous place in the world for many people.
And there has been, I think, you've written about growing a recognition of even in the United States, the massive inequality and that is driving so much anxiety and political change all over the world. And this crisis has, I think, shown all of us, what the front lines really look like, who's on them. We did an issue a couple of weeks ago celebrating the heroes of the front lines, and some of the, I think, very fair feedback we got was, it's great to celebrate us and call us a hero, but pay us $20 an hour for the work.
That's right. That's right. There's a lot we have to improve wages, to improve the stimulus package, which is something we need to do quickly, urgently. And it is, I think, maybe to your point, it's about respecting people. It's not just for this moment to applaud the people who are doing so much work, but real respect and real equality. When people say, I think about that often, somebody says, I believe in equality. Well, what does that really mean, to believe all people are equal? You believe all people are equal, then you can't be okay with how so many people are being treated. And so this is a time for outrage, for grand change across the world. When I was reading the reports about America and what was happening with hunger in America, I felt like I was reading a UN report. I couldn't quite, it actually shocked me. I thought something had gotten confused. I couldn't understand because we don't have the same challenges other countries have, where they're in a famine and they don't have access to certain actual food. We have, as you say, it's this inequality. It's a not making possible for families to survive and work and feed their children.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you about, you, in ordinary circumstances, you must be on the road. I know you're in far-flung corners of the world with your advocacy, and have been for a couple of decades. What is it? Well, let's start with the advocacy. How is this isolation affecting the work of people like you who are normally out in the field? On both sides, the activists and those who are who you're out trying to help. What does relief work look like right now while we're all locked away?
Well, very, very different for me than many in UNHCR. My colleagues who are on the front lines in the camps are still there, and they're there every day. Thousands of them working across the world in over 128 countries to bring assistance to people. And as you know, the camps there's a real question right now. So far, thank God we haven't had cases across a camp, but if we do, it will spread far and fast. Everyone is working very hard to tried to do, sanitation stations and hand washing, and camps have always been, UNHCR is always with very, very little funding and very high numbers ever growing. UNHCR has done its best to try to manage and help the people. We're protection agencies. We try to find a secure place. We try to manage it. We work with all these other wonderful UNHCR. We work with other wonderful UN and NGO actors across the the countries that we work in. But the scale is on another level. So I'm trying to support them. I'm trying to work with them. I'm working with the High Commissioner. We're trying to see what we can do. But I think most people are in quite a lot of shock. And as I said, we could hardly do our work and meet the needs before. So this is really a frightening time, truly a very, very frightening time. It's hard what the suffering from all of the changes that will come with this virus, the economic changes and the food shortages are really hard to imagine how bad it will be.
The theme of this TIME100 talks and of the issue that you contributed to is finding hope. And I fear, thinking back over our conversation the last few minutes, we might sound hopeless. What gives you hope? What personally and in your work?
Well, I do. I spent so many years working with refugees around the world, and people say to me, that must be very hard work or very, very upsetting. And honestly, of course it is. But they have also taught me so much about resilience, about family, about what life is truly about. And I have seen people overcome insurmountable odds with grace and so much unity and so much love and so much this. So I believe in humanity. I have hope. And I think we really can't afford not to have hope. So I think when people are aware, and if they can have a path forward, guiding them with how to help and what to do, they will. I believe they will.
Well, that seems like an appropriate and uplifting place to end. Thank you so much for being with us and for your contributions to Time and for your work around the world.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.